I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello horror hounds, welcome to my horror house and welcome back to Jaws Scene by Scene. We've reached chapter 3 of Feast for the Crabs. Someone was clearly having fun naming these chapter titles on the DVD. You don't see that so much these days, they're just straight numbered. But a real pulp novel title for this chapter where we join Brody, who's arrived on the beach with the young man who called in the fact that Chrissie, the girl he met at the beach party in the previous chapter, has gone missing, presumed drowned. Practically their entire conversation underlines the social strata that exists on Amity Island. You live here? No, Hartford. I go to Trinity. My folks live in Greenwich. Your folks were born here, right? Yeah, I'm an islander. They moved off when my dad retired. You an islander? No, New York City. Even though Brody is a fully grown adult and chief of police to boot, there's almost an insouciant sense of entitlement that comes off this kid because he's an islander, because his parents are moneyed, and even though they only holiday here and don't even live here throughout the year, there's this sense of belonging and entitlement, and it's not made much of in the film, but it's there. It's just an added social pressure. It's another thing that will make Brody doubt himself and doubt his initial actions. Something else popped out at me for the first time watching this scene. I'd never noticed before, but Brody is holding Chrissie's effects, her jacket, jumper and handbag, the things that she stripped off and left in a trail behind her in such happy abandon when she went for that night swim. Then we hear the whistle of alarm further on up the beach and they go running, and we're first introduced to Deputy Hendricks. He gets no dialogue in this scene, but just the humanity of his reaction to finding Chrissie's remains begins the task of humanizing one of these characters on the periphery. This is something we're going to see time and time again in Jaws. And as Brody and the boys stand off to one side looking at what Hendricks has just discovered, is it too much to suggest that the busted leaning fence looks like a row of jagged teeth pointing towards Brody? And then we get a shot as Brody removes his glasses where the shoreline slashes through his body. The shoreline in Jaws becomes increasingly violent. Here it cuts through him at a diagonal. There's more sea than land in this shot. And slowly he turns to look out to sea for the second time in a few short minutes. This time though, he's uncertain, disconcerted. We get a very brief shot of what they have seen. I always thought this shot was very respectful of Chrissie. There's enough there for you to understand what they're seeing, but not enough to glorify in what has been done to her body. Of course, the crabs have already found her, and that's what gives the DVD chapter its title. But the glimpse we get is hardly the lurid pulp novel cover that the title A Feast for the Crabs conjures up in the imagination. One of the strengths of the opening act of Jaws especially is to leave an awful lot to the imagination. I know an awful lot of that was to do with the fact that the shark just didn't work, but necessity being the mother of invention, I think things turned out pretty well. We're left in chapter 2 to imagine the damage being done to Chrissie below the waves. We get a glimpse here of what happened to her, and we're allowed to fill in the gaps. In a future chapter, Hooper's autopsy report will fill in some more of those blanks, but we'll get there in due time. We're back at the police station and the young boy and Hendricks are clearly still in shock, sat immobile and silent, and Polly arrives. She's Brody's secretary, but she's clearly been there from the time before Brody's tenure because he mentions the new filing system he's introduced, which she can't quite get her head round, whether on purpose or not is left for you to decide. She has a short but memorable scene, and Jaws is full of these thumbnail sketch characters who quickly move on and then just as quickly move off the stage, but all seem to have lives of their own, agency, moving in and out, Sometimes the camera just happens to capture them going about their daily business. They do so much more than just add a touch of local colour. And they make Amity feel like a real living island. I understand that many of them were cast from locals who lived in Martha's Vineyard where the film was shot. Such a canny decision. And you know what? I love Polly's first line when she arrives at work and sees Hendrix there.
Well, you're up awful early.
It just tells you so much about her and their dynamic. The way she's dressed, all buttoned up. You can tell she's never been late for work a day in her life. And Hendrix, she's giving him the side eye almost, probably rocks up a little late sometimes, especially during the off season, is a little bit lackadaisical. It does make you wonder whether she really isn't getting Brody's new filing system or just thinks that, well, there was really nothing wrong with the previous filing system that I came up with. Another way that Amity is made to feel real and employed a lot in this scene is the way that lines of dialogue cut constantly over one another. These people's lives aren't going to pause and stop just because the film has a story it wants to tell. Polly's going to talk about the karate school and the young kids karateing the picket fences. A shop owner is going to bust into the scene at the end while Brody's talking and insist on telling him about a damn truck with New Hampshire plates and it's smack in front of my store. This brief scene at the police station is brisk, it's loud, there's a lot of bustle going on. There's only one moment where all of that noise dies down, and it's when Brody takes the call from the medical inspector whilst he's filling out the official form on Chrissie's death, and all the noise and hullabaloo dies down as we see when he gets the nod from the medical inspector, he types out probable cause of death, shark attack. Things are moving fast, the wheels of officialdom are already moving, but they will grind on and crush him under them. He thinks this is a done deal. It is far from over. Because as Brody leaves the office and marches towards the town to get sign-making supplies so he can close the beach, we get a shot of a gentleman we will very soon come to realise is that medical inspector. He's leaving his offices. A little bit further on down the lane, a reporter for the Amityville Gazette is heading out, putting on his jacket. Things are moving very quickly. The news has got out as to what's happened, and there's a scent of blood in the water. The blood of a kind of trouble which could scupper the island's summer plans. And all of these figures of officialdom now start to circle those metaphorical waters around Brody. Early as it is in the day and in the summer, Amity is already getting into swing, just as I think of the Sharks theme as a locomotive engine building momentum. This marching band that's playing in the background is Amity's engine gearing up for summer. These are two forces, the shark with its single-minded purpose and Amity and its summer engine getting up to full speed, that are going to collide. And we're told explicitly about it as Brody enters the hardware store. Another couple of thumbnail characters, the guy who owns the store and a local who has got a big order from him that isn't being fulfilled. This stuff ain't gonna help me in August. The summer ginks come down here in June. You haven't got one thing I ordered. Not a beach umbrella, not a sun lounger, no beach balls. We see bunting being put up outside offices. We're being told again and again and again. So much condensed information. Just like the radio headlines in the previous chapter as Brody woke up on WISS. All of these pressures, this machine that is gearing up, which is called Summer in Amity. And the brief events of this very morning, with Brody gearing up to close the beaches, is putting all of that in doubt. As I say, things are moving very, very fast. We're not given pause for breath as Hendrix finds Brody and tells him that there are some Boy Scouts out in the bay swimming for their merit badges, and they don't have a radio and no one can call them back in. Brody's going to jump in the Jeep and see what he can do about that. It doesn't mean we don't have time for just another little bit of colour added to the Polly Hendrix relationship, where even though Polly is probably a pain in his ass, she's at least efficient, and Brody wants Polly to do the printing on the beach closed signs. What's wrong with my printing? Let Polly do the printing. I hope you can join me for the next chapter, which is very short, but essentially focuses our minds on all of these underlying pressures and forces that we've been talking about now. We meet Mayor Larry Vaughan for the first time, and he spells out in black and white exactly what is at stake in chapter 4, If You Yell Shark.